Hello and welcome back to your mat. Today I'm going to cover the topic of yoga props, or I like to use the term yoga tools. There are lots of props or tools that you can use to make your yoga practice more accessible and just to aid in your practice overall. I've been practicing for over 10 years and I still use a lot of these props on a very regular basis. But I also wanted to show you yoga props, tools that you can buy, and also things that you may have in your house, common household items that you can use in place of. So instead of having to go out and buy these tools. So we'll get started with a quote, and then I'm going to go through those with you and then show you some examples with the poses themselves. So let's get started. And the first one, or I'm sorry, the quote is by Alan Finger. Yoga adds years to your life and life to your years. So practicing yoga is really helpful to add those life to your years. So we're going to start with the first prop we're going to talk about is a yoga strap. So again, before you have this negative, oh, I don't want to use props, that makes me less likely and able to do yoga. That's not actually true. This is going to really make yoga a lot more accessible. And I love using these, so please do. The first one is a yoga strap, and it's exactly what it looks like. It's a strap. And I have one that has what's called a D-ring on it, so I'm able to actually loop it through if I need to. So this is a great tool to have at your disposal. If you don't want to go out and buy a yoga strap, you can go out and use a belt, a scarf. And this looks a lot like a yoga strap, but this is simply a belt that you can use in place of a strap. You can use, like I said, a scarf. You could even use a towel if you wanted to. So that is another option if you don't want to go out and buy this. So how would I use the strap? Well, there's a lot of ways we can do it, but I'll show you one example would be with shoulders. People who have perpetually tight shoulders, this is going to help you so much. So with this strap in hand, I'll bring it out in front of me, and I have it a few feet between my hands. And I'll simply bring my hands out and pull that strap tight and bring the arms up overhead as far as you can go. And if you need to stop there, go ahead. Or if you want to go a little bit, if you can keep going a little bit further, you may have to loosen up a little bit more on the strap, and you can bring those hands back behind you, trying to keep your arms as straight as possible. And run through this a few times with your strap. This is going to really help with your shoulder mobility, and you may find over time you're able to bring your hands closer on the strap. So this is a great use of the strap. There's a lot of other ones. This is just one example. And if you have tight shoulders, this will be your friend. So that's prop number one, or tool number one, as the case may be. The second great tool that I love to use in yoga, and I use these on a very regular basis, more than even my strap, and that would be a set of blocks. So these are foam blocks, and they have a low setting, so that's the lowest setting. They have the medium setting, and then they have a high setting. So you can use them in any way, or any of those settings. So having one or two blocks is very, very helpful for your yoga practice, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. It really helps to bring the floor up to you. Now, if you don't have blocks, or you don't want to go out and buy blocks, and maybe you're just getting started, I have an alternative. I have pickle jars today. You could use large soup cans, but this is the thing that I had that was nice and tall. I know, pickles. But most of us have some sort of canned goods or jar goods in our refrigerator. And as you can see, it kind of gives you that similar height. So obviously the bigger these were. You can also use books, anything that's going to give you some height. And I'll show you an example. So grab a couple of jars of pickles or cans of tomatoes or whatever. And I will show you an example with lunge and pyramid pose. So this one can always be a little difficult for some people, especially even for myself. My hamstrings are really tight. So we're going to start with, I'm just going to do my right leg forward first, and I'm in a high lunge here. And then, so I've got the blocks on the medium height. I'm actually going to probably bring them up to the highest height, but you can play around with this with your blocks or whatever you might be using. You could stack up your books. And then going from lunge, you're going to come into a pyramid pose. So you're just going to simply straighten that front foot. And you could see if I had to have my hands on the ground, I'd have to put a big bend in my knee, and I'm not going to get quite the stretch that I want. But with the blocks, it magically brings the floor up for me. And so now I'm able to get that leg more straight, and I'm still able to do the pose. I'll show you which is the other side just so you can see it again. I'll do it on the medium height this time. So again, a high lunge, and then I'm going to straighten that right leg and come into a pyramid pose, a nice little stretch here. And again, these blocks are helping to bring the floor to me. So don't be afraid to use these. These are excellent tools. This is, if there was one thing I would say if you're going to buy something, buy blocks. Or have something in your household that's like blocks. The next thing that can come in handy would be a bolster. This one I use on occasion, not as much, but bolsters can really help in like restorative poses. It can help in yin poses, just in a lot of ways. So a nice bolster. This one is, they had different sizes. This is, I found to be a much better size. The one I had before was a lot wider and just too big and too tall. So you kind of have to play around with what's the right size for you, but I found this is a great size for me. It works wonders. Now, these can also, you know, there can be costly sometimes depending on which kind you get. So as an alternative, most of us, I would say, probably have bed pillows or couch cushions. And obviously this is not gonna hold up as it's not gonna be as robust as a bolster, but you could stack up 2 pillows. You could stack, if you have some couch cushions that are nice and firm, those would work really well. So grab a pillow if you don't have a bolster. And one of the poses that I'm gonna show you on that one is gonna be our heart opener. And so a heart opener, this comes in really handy because you can actually, you snuggle up that bolster or your pillow up to the small of your back, and you lie over that bolster, and then you let your arms drape out over the sides. And this gives you a bolstered effect, but it also opens up your chest. So this is fantastic to help open up the chest, reverse the sitting hunched over a desk or a computer all day. So a bolster is really helpful for this. You can obviously use a bolster for a lot of other things. This is just one example. So there's that. And we're going to keep that out because I'm actually going to show you, we're going to use it for this next one too. So the next prop that I find handy, and mine is just a regular blanket. Now you can actually buy yoga blankets. They're Mexican style blankets, what they're called. You can get those on Amazon or whatever. And I've just found that my blankets that I have work just fine. So a regular blanket or a yoga blanket. And if you don't have that handy, you can always reach for a towel. This will also work. So we have a couple different things, different ways we would use this prop. There's a lot of ways we use all of these different tools. But you could use this to pad up your knees. So when you're coming into some of your lunges for your knees. But what I'm going to show you, and I'm actually going to use the towel in this case because this would actually work better in this case. I'm going to use it in a supine bound angle pose. So it's going to help me with my bound angle. So I'm going to open up my blanket like so, and then I'm just going to turn it into a little skinny roll here. So just roll it up, and again, you could still use a blanket for this. And then you're going to come into your bound angle, so bringing the soles of your feet together. You're going to grab that prop, and then you're going to take that blanket or that pillow, and you're just going to wrap it around. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm doing it the wrong way. Put the, I don't know how to use my own tools. Take the towel and put it on top of your feet, and then wrap it around the bottom parts of your ankles here. And this is just going to help open this up a little bit more for you. And then you can lie back on that bolster. So now you're in your nice supine heart opener plus a nice hip opener. You can see where now I'm doubling up on my props and I'm using 2 of them at the same time. And this just makes this so much more accessible, and you now can really relax into that pose. So there is one option to use a blanket other than like padding up also. I'm going to keep this handy because I want to show you this one last prop that I really, really love, and that's an eye covering. So especially at the end of a yoga class, we do what's called Shavasana. That's a nice restful pose that we do, and it really helps to have an eye covering to block out any light. So you can buy all these things, or you can use the alternative, a washcloth, a t-shirt, a small towel. You know, any of these will also do the same trick. So you don't have to necessarily go out and buy this stuff. So we're going to put all this together, what we just did. And alternatively, you could use blocks. I mean, you could use literally all of these tools in one class if you wanted to. I try to keep my classes as simple and as the least amount of tools needed. But we're gonna go ahead and sit back up with that towel. I've got my bolster, and when I lie back over, I'm gonna grab my eye covering, and now you'll see the finished product here with the eye covering over my eyes, my arms flip out to the side, and this is just magical. And I'm gonna give you just a minute here, not a minute, but just to listen to the birds, and if you're practicing along with me or trying these out, you might wanna just stay here. Or if you've got this on a repeat and now you're practicing along with me. Super cush experience. So yoga doesn't have to always be about really being active and working yourself and stretching. Sometimes it can also be about taking some time out and relaxing. But even if you are doing more active poses, the blocks really are handy for that. So are the strap. And let's see, I think that is, I've covered everything. I just want to make sure we have. Yes, we have. So again, if you want to buy any of these props, if you find that your yoga practice is something that's really a big part of your life, and for me it is, so I have all of these props well before I became a yoga teacher because I was really using them all the time. I mean, the strap really helps with my hamstrings, it helps with my shoulders. This helps with the restorative. I can even use this as a seat when I meditate. I use my bolster for my seat for meditation. You know, so there's so many advantages to all of these different props and tools and blocks. Those I use those almost at least one block in almost all my classes that I do on my own. So you don't have to necessarily go out and buy all these things. You can have your alternatives here. You can have a towel instead of a blanket. You can have a washcloth instead of an eye covering. You can have a belt or a scarf instead of a yoga strap. You can have a blanket a pillow or pillows instead of a bolster. And seriously, pickle jars are great for a block, or any other kind of canned good that you may have, or books. So I hope this tutorial, this was helpful to go through some of the tools that you can use to make your yoga practice better and more accessible for you. Try them out the next time you have you do a class, see what works for you. And thank you for joining me. And until next time.